When my daughter got married, I kept a secret. She'd inherited $9 million from her grandfather, my dad. Thank God I didn't say anything, because right after the wedding, her new husband showed up with a notary demanding every last cent. He had no idea who he was messing with. I just smiled and said something that made their faces turn pale and their hands start to shake. I was standing in the middle of my living room, the winter cold seeping through the windows of our modest city home as Clara faced me with fire in her eyes. It was January 2024, and the argument had blown up like a storm I hadn't seen coming. She was holding a sample wedding invitation, the glossy paper crinkling in her grip. "Dad, I'm marrying Ethan, whether you like it or not," she yelled, her voice breaking with defiance. I paced back and forth on the worn-out carpet, my fists clenched. How did we get here? Just a few weeks earlier, at that awkward family dinner, Ethan had dismissed my old engineering job, calling it quaint. With a little smirk that made my blood boil. I'd kept my mouth shut then, for her. But now? "Clara, he's arrogant, egotistical. I've seen how he treats people, like that text he sent you last month, brushing off your ideas as cute. He's not the one for you." She threw the invitation onto the coffee table, where it skidded and knocked over a framed photo of the three of us, me, Clara, and her late mother, from happier times. The glass shattered on impact, a sharp sound that mirrored the fracture in my heart. "You're just jealous because I'm finally happy. Mom's been gone for 15 years, Dad. You raised me alone, but I need my own life now. Ethan loves me. He proposed on that trip up to the lakes in Michigan, remember? Just stay out of it." I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, my knuckles white against the wood. Memories flooded in, uninvited. Clara as a little girl, after her mom's accident, clinging to me during those endless nights. My father, her grandpa, had stepped in then, taking us fishing on the big river, teaching her chess in his cozy study, always whispering advice about how to spot the takers in life. He died just 2 months ago at 80, leaving me that staggering inheritance, $9 million from his savvy investments. I'd planned to tell Clara eventually, but now, with this rushed engagement, no, something felt off. "Clara, please," I pleaded, reaching out. "Think about it. You've only known him for a year. Why the rush?" Her face twisted in anger, tears welling. "Because I love him, and if you can't support me, then don't come to the wedding." She grabbed her coat from the hook by the door, the fabric whispering like a final goodbye, and stormed out into the snowy night. The door slammed shut, echoing through the empty house. I sank into the armchair, staring at the broken photo on the floor. My chest tightened with a mix of anger and grief. Raising her had been my everything, getting by on my pension after I retired early to be there for her school plays, her heartbreaks. Grandpa had helped with the bills, always saying, "Protect your blood, Frank. Family is all we have." And now, this Ethan, with his flashy real estate job, and that condescending mother of his, Catherine, who looked at our house like it was beneath her. I picked up the photo, brushing away the shards. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he was just ambitious. But deep down, a knot formed in my stomach. The inheritance papers were in my desk drawer, untouched since the lawyer's call. Thank God I hadn't mentioned it yet. If Ethan knew, I had to keep it hidden. For her safety, for now. As the hours ticked by, the house grew colder, the furnace humming uselessly against the harsh Midwest winter. I paced again, replaying the fight, until I finally reached for my phone on the end table. The phone felt heavy in my hand as I dialed Clara's number, the screen glowing in the dim living room. "Dad, it's late." "I know," I said, leaning against the wall, where family photos hung like silent witnesses. I couldn't sleep. "Clara, I'm sorry I overreacted. If Ethan makes you happy, then I'll be there, at the wedding." There was a pause, then a soft sigh. "Really? Oh, Dad, thank you. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's just, everything is moving so fast. But it's the right thing. You'll see." We talked for a while, her excitement bubbling through the line as she described the venue. A charming downtown hall overlooking the thawing river as early spring approached. I forced a smile into my voice, but inside, the doubts lingered. After hanging up, I walked to my study, the floorboards creaking. The desk drawer whispered open, revealing the lawyer's envelope. Estate of James Vance. $9 million. I sealed it in a safe deposit box and shoved it to the back of the closet, burying the secret like a time capsule. The next few weeks faded into a routine of reconciliation. February brought milder days, the snow melting into slush on the neighborhood streets. I visited Grandpa's grave at the quiet cemetery just outside of town, the wind whispering through the bare trees as I knelt by the headstone. "You'd know what to do, Dad," I murmured, tracing the engraved dates, 1943 to 2023. He'd built that fortune quietly, investing in local real estate, all while teaching me the value of discretion. "Protect her," he'd told me on his deathbed, squeezing my hand. Memories hit me there. Clara at 10, laughing as Grandpa pushed her on his backyard swing. Me, a widower and overwhelmed, leaning on him for advice during her rebellious teen years. Back home, I threw myself into wedding prep to bridge the gap. I attended a fitting at the bridal shop, watching Clara spin in her dress, the lace catching the fluorescent lights. "You look beautiful," I said, hugging her awkwardly between the mirrors. "Thanks, Dad. Ethan's mom is helping with the flowers. Catherine has such great taste." Clara beamed, but I noticed the subtle tightness in her smile when she mentioned Catherine. Then came the planning lunch at a cozy restaurant on Main Street. Ethan and Catherine joined us, their luxury sedan parked ostentatiously next to our modest ones. Ethan shook my hand firmly, his eyes scanning the menu with disinterest. "Frank, glad you're on board. This wedding is going to be top-notch." Catherine, with her perfect hair and designer scarf, leaned in. "Yes, we're sparing no expense. Clara deserves the best." Her tone had an edge of superiority, as if our family needed to be lifted up. Over sandwiches the conversation flowed, but the tension simmered. I overheard Catherine whisper to Ethan, "Make sure the prenup covers everything, just in case." He nodded, smirking. My fork paused mid-air. Was that greed I detected? Clara chatted excitedly about honeymoons, oblivious. Later, alone in my car on the way home, I gripped the steering wheel tighter. That comment ate at me. I stopped by my old friend's law office in a small strip mall and casually asked about the privacy of inheritances. "It's completely airtight if you don't disclose it," he assured me, handing me a pamphlet. "But why hide it?" "Just a precaution," I replied, tucking it away. March arrived with budding trees, and the wedding loomed in April. I helped Clara pack keepsakes at her apartment, a small place she now shared with Ethan. Boxes cluttered the living room, tissue paper crinkling as we worked. "Dad, Ethan has been so supportive," she said, tying a ribbon. "He even suggested we buy a house, something bigger." I nodded, but inside, alarm bells rang. His real estate background made sense, but the push felt calculated. "Sounds ambitious. Just make sure it's what you want." She paused, ribbon in hand. "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" That night at a family dinner Ethan hosted at his place, Catherine dominated the conversation, bragging about their business deals. Ethan chimed in, his arm draped possessively around Clara. As dessert was served, a tart from a local bakery, the talk turned to the future. "Frank, you must have some savings tucked away from your engineering days," Ethan said casually, his eyes sharp. I deflected with a laugh. "Enough to get by." But his gaze lingered, and Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. As I left, waving goodbye from the porch, a chill that had nothing to do with the night air settled over me. The wedding was just weeks away, and something in their behavior whispered trouble. I walked into the downtown wedding hall on that cool March afternoon in 2024, the floral arches framing the entrance like a deceptive promise of joy. The unease from that family dinner lingered, a knot in my stomach as I adjusted my tie and scanned the crowd. Guests mingled under the chandeliers, their chatter mixing with soft music, but I caught Catherine's sharp gaze from across the room. She stood beside Ethan, both in custom outfits that screamed excess. The ceremony started promptly. Clara walked down the aisle on my arm, her veil drifting slightly. She squeezed my hand, whispering, "Thanks for being here, Dad." I nodded, forcing calm, though my mind flashed back to Grandpa's warnings about hasty unions. Vows were exchanged, Ethan's voice firm, almost rehearsed as the officiant declared them husband and wife. Applause erupted, but I clapped mechanically, watching Ethan kiss her with a possessiveness that made me grind my teeth. At the reception, the tables groaned under platters of traditional dishes: roast beef, mashed potatoes, and salads tossed with local cheeses. I navigated the crowd, greeting relatives, but the tension rose as I neared the head table. Catherine intercepted me with a glass of champagne, her smile tight. "Frank, how quaint that you're here alone. No +1 from your circles?" I took the glass, my grip steady. "Family is enough for me, Catherine. Congratulations on the day." She leaned in, her voice low. "Ethan has worked hard for this. Clara's lucky. He'll elevate her beyond, well, what she's known." Her eyes flickered to my simple suit, a jab I ignored, but it stung like salt in a fresh wound. Ethan joined us, clapping me on the shoulder a little too hard. "Frank, great turnout. Your toast is later. Keep it short, okay? We're on a schedule." I moved away, finding a seat, but overheard guests murmuring near the bar. "Marrying up, that's for sure. Her dad's sweet. But that house they have." Heat rose in my cheeks. Clara was dancing with Ethan, laughing, though her eyes flickered to me now and then, as if for reassurance. The toast came after dinner. I stood, glass raised, heart pounding. "To Clara and Ethan, may your life together be filled with the love and respect Clara deserves. She is my world, and I trust you'll treasure her as such." Murmurs of agreement followed, but Ethan chuckled into his mic next. "Thanks, Frank. Appreciate the sentiment. And hey, with my deals closing soon, we'll have plenty to treasure. Houses, trips, the works, no more scraping by." A laugh rippled through his side of the room, but it felt aimed, a veiled insult at my modest life. Catherine added from her seat, "Indeed, progress is everything." Clara shot me an apologetic look, but didn't speak up. I sat down, fists clenched under the table, silently vowing to stay vigilant. This wasn't just arrogance, it reeked of calculation. As the night wore on, we cut the cake, a towering creation with intricate frosting that contrasted with the bitterness growing in me. I danced briefly with Clara, her head on my shoulder. "Dad, ignore them. They're just excited." "Excited about what, exactly?" I asked quietly, spinning her gently. She hesitated, then smiled. "About our future. It's bright." But as the band played on, I saw Ethan whispering to Catherine, their heads together, gesturing animatedly. What were they plotting? The twist came during the garter toss. Ethan flung it with flair, landing it near a group of his colleagues who cheered. One of his buddies joked loudly, "Bet the inheritance on the next one." Ethan laughed, but his eyes met mine for a split second, sharp and knowing. Did he suspect something about Grandpa's estate? My pulse quickened. Thank God I'd hidden it. The evening ended with farewells. Clara hugged me tight outside, the spring air holding a hint of rain. "I love you, Dad. Honeymoon's next. We'll talk soon." I watched their car pull away, the taillights fading into the night, that knot of worry tightening. What was waiting for her in that new life? A week later, my phone rang shrilly in the quiet of my living room, pulling me from a book. It was late March, and the days had dragged by with uneasy texts from Clara. Short updates about settling in, nothing deep. Her name flashed on the screen, and I answered quickly. "Clara, is everything okay?" Her voice cracked, sobs punching through the words. "Dad, please, come get me. I can't stay here. It's all wrong." My heart seized. "What happened? Where's Ethan? Just come. I'm outside with my stuff. Hurry." She hung up, leaving me staring at the phone, my mind racing. I grabbed my keys from the hook, coat half on, and sprinted to the car. The engine roared to life as I peeled out of the street. The rain started to patter on the windshield, mirroring the storm inside me. What had he done? Memories of the wedding, her radiant smile, collided with this nightmare. I'd reached out daily via text, sensing her replies growing shorter, but she'd brushed off my concerns. 15 minutes later, I turned onto her street in the upscale suburb, headlights cutting through the drizzle. Clara was on the porch, 2 suitcases at her feet, hair plastered to her face, shoulders shaking. No lights were on inside. The house loomed dark and empty. I jumped from the car, the rain soaking my shirt as I ran to her. "Clara, get in the car. Let's get your bags." She threw her arms around me, burying her face in my shoulder. "Dad, thank you. They're not home. They left with his mother, probably celebrating whatever scheme they have." I tossed the bags in the trunk, the solid thud echoing my determination. "Tell me what happened. Did he hurt you?" She slid into the passenger seat, wiping her eyes on her sleeve. "Not physically, but it's bad. Let's just go. I just want to get away from here. I put the car in drive, pulling away slowly, the wipers thumping rhythmically. The suburb faded behind us, replaced by the quieter roads leading back to my house. Start from the beginning. Whatever it is, we'll fix it. She took a shaky breath, gripping the door handle. After the honeymoon talk fell through, he said work was too busy. We argued. Then yesterday I found papers. Divorce papers, Dad, hidden in his drawer, and texts on his phone to another woman. He's been planning this. My grip on the wheel tightened, anger rising, but I kept my voice calm. Divorce? Already? And cheating? Tears streamed down her face. Worse. He mentioned something about securing assets in a call with Catherine. I frowned, remembering Grandpa's stories about his real estate deals. Dad, is he talking about something Grandpa left? You never mentioned a will. I shook my head, playing it down. Nothing to tell yet, Clara. Let's focus on getting you out of this first. As if they were expecting money, from you or from Grandpa. I confronted him, and he laughed. He said I was naive, that the marriage was my step up, but that I wasn't worth the trouble anymore. The twist shattered me, not just the betrayal, but the premeditated greed. I passed her a tissue from the glove box, our fingers brushing. Why now? What changed? She dabbed at her eyes, her voice trembling. I don't know everything yet, but he kept asking about your finances, probing. When I told him you didn't have anything significant, he got cold. Dad, I ignored your warnings. I'm so sorry. We turned onto my street, the lights of the house welcoming us through the rain, but she paused, staring out the window. Is there more? He said, if I leave quietly, no trouble. But I think they're coming after something. Maybe the house or... Wait, did Grandpa leave something I don't know about? I looked at her, the question hanging heavy in the air as we pulled into the driveway. I passed Clara the tissue as we drove through the slick city streets, the wipers sweeping steady arcs across the windshield. Here, dry your eyes, I said softly, keeping one hand on the wheel. Take your time, but tell me everything. We can't fix this if I don't know. She pressed the tissue to her face, the fibers catching on her damp skin like fragile regrets. It started right after the wedding. We didn't even go on that honeymoon he promised, said work was piling up. But yesterday, I came home early from the office, just feeling off. His car was there, but the house was too quiet. I walked in and I heard voices from the bedroom, not just his, hers. A woman from his office, I think. They were together. I just froze in the doorway, Dad. He didn't even look sorry when he saw me, just annoyed, like I'd interrupted something trivial. My knuckles whitened on the wheel. Rage bubbled up, but I swallowed it, focusing on the road, the headlights piercing the fog rolling up from the big river. And the divorce papers. You mentioned texts, she nodded, wadding the tissue in her fist. After I confronted him, he threw the papers at me. Said to sign them, quick, no fuss. But I grabbed his phone first. Texts. To her, going back months, and to Catherine, too, scheming, about assets and how to secure the family fortune. He kept grilling me about Grandpa's will, asking if you'd hidden something. I told him there was nothing, but he just laughed, said I was blind. Dad, I should have listened to you from the beginning, your warnings at that dinner. I defended him, but deep down, I saw the red flags, like that text I ignored before the wedding, him joking with a friend about marrying for money. I thought it was harmless. The twist hit me like a punch, not just infidelity, but a calculated hunt for the inheritance I had buried. I glanced at her, seeing the little girl I'd raised reflected in her tired eyes. Memories surfaced, unbidden. Kneeling at Grandpa's grave last month, vowing to protect her just as he'd protected us, his steady hands on my shoulders during those tough years after her mom died. This isn't your fault, Clara. He's the deceiver. We'll handle this. Lawyers, whatever it takes. You're safe now. She slipped off her wedding ring, dropping it into the cup holder with a soft clink. I feel so stupid. I rushed into everything. For what? Independence? Love? It was a lie. We turned onto my street, the familiar houses blurring in the downpour. I pulled into the driveway, cutting the engine. Get inside. We'll get you settled, then we'll talk more. As I gathered her things, a distant rumble echoed. It wasn't thunder. It was an approaching car, headlights slicing the rain like accusations. The car screeched to a halt, gravel spitting under the tires, and Ethan jumped out, his face twisted in fury under the harsh porch light. It was early April, just hours since I'd brought Clara home. She'd been sipping tea in the kitchen, spilling more details through sobs. Then she'd drifted into an uneasy sleep on the couch while I paced, my resolve hardening like steel. The confrontation I'd anticipated had arrived sooner than expected. I walked out onto the front lawn, the cool night air biting at my skin, positioning myself between the house and him. "Ethan, turn around and leave. She's not going anywhere with you." He slammed his car door, stalking forward, fists clenched. "Where is she? Clara, get out here! This isn't over!" His voice boomed, bouncing off the neighbors' houses, a few porch lights flickering on in response. I held my ground, arms crossed. "She's inside, safe. You betrayed her, you cheated on her, and now it's done. Get off my property before I call the cops." He laughed bitterly, stopping just short of me, rain dripping from his hair. "Safe? From what? Her own decisions? She signed up for this marriage. And you, hiding whatever crumbs you have. Catherine knows people. We'll drag this out. We'll take what's ours. You think you're protecting her? You're just delaying the inevitable." The taunt fueled my defiance. I remembered the wedding reception, his smug toast about progress, Catherine's condescending nods. They'd underestimated me then, and they were underestimating me now. "Threats won't work. Leave, or I'm making that call." Through the window, I saw Clara peek out, her hand on the curtain, eyes wide. Ethan spotted her, his expression softening falsely. "Clara, baby, come on, we can talk about this. Your dad is filling your head with nonsense." She didn't move, and I stepped forward, my voice low and firm. "She's done talking. Go." He hesitated one more moment, the twist coming as he sneered. "Fine. But I know more than you think about that old man's money. Catherine is already on it. You'll regret this." He spun around, wrenching his car door open with a metallic groan, and sped off, taillights vanishing into the night. I exhaled slowly, the lawn quiet again save for the patter of rain. Locking the front door behind me, I turned to Clara, who was standing in the hallway, hugging herself. "He's gone. Now, let's look at those divorce papers. We'll get a lawyer first thing tomorrow." She nodded, sinking into a chair at the kitchen table, opening the folder she'd brought. "Okay. But Dad, what if he does know about the inheritance? We need a plan." The next morning, morning light streamed through the kitchen blinds, casting long shadows on the table where Clara and I sat with hot mugs of coffee. After Ethan's tumultuous departure, the air in our house still buzzed with unresolved tension. Clara listlessly stirred her coffee, her eyes red from a restless night. "We can't wait, Dad. These papers he gave me are full of demands. I need to file first, make it official." I nodded, setting my mug down with a soft clink, the steam rising like a veil between us. "You're right. Let's gather what we need. Marriage certificate, IDs, any joint accounts. I'll take us to a lawyer's office downtown. He's an old friend of mine. Trustworthy, Jim." We stood together, moving through the house with purposeful steps. I opened the hall closet, searching a box of important papers, my fingers brushing the faded edges of her birth certificate and our old family photos. Clara joined me, stacking papers on the table. Her driver's license. The marriage license we'd signed just weeks ago, now a bitter artifact. She paused over a snapshot from the reception. Her in the dress. Ethan smiling by her side. Her hand trembled slightly before she put it away. I can't believe how blind I was, but it's over. We gathered everything into a folder, the pages whispering like dry leaves, and headed out. The car doors shut with a dull thud, and I started the engine, navigating the spring traffic along the bluffs along the big river. Clara stared out the window, the budding trees blurring past. What if he plays dirty? He mentioned assets again in his text last night. He's still assuming we're broke. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," I said, merging onto the main road. The hum of the tires on the pavement steadied my thoughts, reminding me of drives with Grandpa, his voice warning against haste. Memories flickered, Ethan's wedding toast, bragging about deals in progress, his eyes glittering with unspoken ambition. I'd dismissed it then, but now it fueled my suspicion. We reached the lawyer's office in a modest downtown building, the parking lot half filled with sedans like ours. Inside, the waiting room smelled like stale coffee and old files. The receptionist showed us in to Jim's cluttered desk, piled high with folders and a half-eaten donut. Jim, a bald man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses, stood to shake our hands. "Frank, Clara, tough situation, but we'll sort it. Sit down." We settled into worn chairs, spreading the documents on his desk. Jim scanned them, his pen tapping a steady rhythm. "Grounds for divorce, infidelity from what you described. We have the texts as proof? Good. We'll file for dissolution today. We'll aim for an amicable split, but be ready for resistance." Clara leaned forward, her voice firm. "He cheated. He lied about everything. I want out, clean, no alimony games." Jim nodded, pulling forms from a drawer. "Smart. Sign here, initial there. We'll petition the court. The hearing will be in a few weeks." As we worked, my phone buzzed on the desk, vibrating insistently. Ethan's name flashed. I looked at Clara. She tensed, then shrugged. "Answer it. Let's see what he says," I accepted, putting it on speaker. "What do you want, Ethan?" His voice crackled, loaded with venom. "Think you're smart? Filing already? Catherine heard from a mutual friend. Clara's at a lawyer's. Listen, old man, drop this. Sign the papers I gave her, or I'll bury you in court. We know you're hiding something. Debts, maybe? We'll expose it all." Clara's eyes flashed. "Expose what? Your affair. Go ahead, Ethan. I'm done with your threats." He laughed, short and harsh. "Big words, but when the judge sees how unstable she is running off like that, we'll claim abandonment and the assets. We're keeping the house, the car, whatever crumbs you have. Catherine has connections." Jim motioned for calm, silently mouthing, "Record this." I kept my voice steady. "Threats won't change the facts. Stay away from us." I hung up, the line cutting off with a beep. The room was silent save for the ticking of a wall clock. Jim cleared his throat. "That helps our case. Harassment." "I'll note it." We finished signing, the pen scratching finality onto the paper. Clara exhaled, a weight lifting slightly. "It feels like a start." Back in the car, driving home through lighter traffic, I replayed his words, hiding something. He was fishing, but close. Thank God for the safe deposit box in my closet, the inheritance untouched. As I pulled into the driveway, my phone pinged again. A text from Ethan. "File if you want. We'll win. You have no idea what's coming." I stared at the screen, the words glowing like a challenge, my mind already turning to deeper protections. A few days later, the phone rang again as I paced the living room, the afternoon sun slanting across the worn carpet. We'd spent the week in an uneasy limbo, Clara back at her job, me researching divorce basics online late into the night, the blue glow of the screen etching lines of resolve onto my face. Ethan's voice burst through when I answered, smug and amplified. "Frank, you should have listened. I've got the best lawyers money can buy. A top-shelf firm in the state capital. They'll tear your little filing apart. Clara thinks she can just walk away. We're claiming everything, assuming your Poverty Act is just that." An act. I gripped the phone tighter, standing by the window where the curtains fluttered in the breeze. "Bluster all you want, Ethan. The truth is on our side." He chuckled, low and mocking. "Truth? Like the truth that Clara's the one who walked out? Catherine is already talking to friends. Words getting around she got cold feet, maybe even cheated first. People talk in this town." The line went dead, leaving a hollow echo. I set the phone down, my heart pounding. Rumors, a clever poison. That evening, a hesitant knock sounded at the door during dinner. Clara paused, fork mid-air. Who now? It was Mrs. O'Malley from next door, her gray hair in a neat bun, holding a hot casserole dish like a peace offering. "Frank, dear, I heard." Her eyes were kind. "Well, whispers at the bridge club. Catherine is telling people Clara left Ethan over nothing, that she's unstable, even hinted at an affair on her part. I don't believe it, of course, but I thought you should know." Clara joined me at the door, her face pale. "That's a lie. She's twisting it to make me look bad." Mrs. O'Malley nodded sympathetically. "I figured as much, but it's spreading. I saw it on the neighborhood Facebook group, too." She handed over the dish, the ceramic warm against my palms, and patted away. We shut the door, the deadbolt sliding home. Clara paced, arms crossed. They're playing dirty, today at work. A coworker asked if I was okay, said she'd heard from a friend of Catherine's about the trouble. We have to fight back. I nodded, moving to my study where the computer hummed to life. Agreed, it's time to use what I have. Fingers flew over the keys. I searched for private investigators in the city, discreet, specializing in marital disputes. One man popped up, an ex-cop with good reviews. Memories hit me, burying the inheritance papers months ago, Grandpa's voice echoing. Discretion saves lives. Hiding it had been wise. Now, I'd use a small, anonymous piece of it. Clara looked over my shoulder. A detective? To investigate Ethan? Yes, proof of his affair, any financial schemes. We'll turn the tables on them. I dialed the number, setting a meeting for the next day at a quiet downtown diner. As we talked, an anonymous text buzzed on my phone. She's the unfaithful one. Watch your back. Likely from one of his circle. The twist came that night. Clara listened to a voicemail from a blocked number, Catherine's voice seeping through. Tell Frank we'll expose the family secrets if they don't back off. I know there's more to that old man's will. She held the phone out to me, her hands steady despite the tremor in her voice. They're desperate, I said, deleting it, but noting the fear beneath their bravado. We dug deeper, the clicks of the keyboard punctuating our plans. By morning, I'd transferred a retainer from a separate account, the transaction invisible. As I finalized the meet with the PID, a notice from the court arrived in the mail. Preliminary hearing set. The tide was turning, my hidden strength ready to emerge. In late April, I stood in the dim light of my study, the court notice slightly crumpled in my hand from gripping it too tightly. The preliminary hearing was set for next month, a ticking clock that amplified every shadow in the room. I set the paper down next to the safe deposit box I'd pulled from the closet, its metal edges cool beneath my fingers. Inside lay the inheritance documents. $9 million, Grandpa's legacy hidden like a weapon in reserve. Looking at the numbers, I felt a surge of resolve. It was time to wield it, carefully, turning the secret into both a shield and a sword. I picked up the phone, dialing the number for an elite lawyer I'd researched online, one who specialized in high-conflict family law and asset protection. The line connected after 2 rings. Mr. Vance, this is Elena Warren. How can I help you? Her voice was crisp, all business. I need representation for a divorce case involving potential fraud, quietly, and resources to investigate the other party. We set a meeting for the next day at a quiet diner just outside the city, away from prying eyes. After hanging up, I transferred a modest retainer from a separate account I'd opened anonymously. $50,000 to start, untraceable to the main fortune. The transaction confirmed with a soft chime on my computer, and I sat back, my mind drifting to November 2023. Grandpa on his deathbed, his frail hand in mine. Frank, the money is for protection, not for show. Use it wisely against those who would steal our peace. His eyes had burned with that final wisdom, the room heavy with the smell of hospital antiseptic. I'd nodded, sealing the vow. The next morning, I drove to the diner, the spring sun glinting off the big river as I crossed the bridge. Flowers dotted the roadside, a deceptive calm. Inside, Elena was waiting in a corner booth, her dark hair pulled back, a tablet open before her. We shook hands, and I slid the folder with the initial documents across the table. Ethan is pushing for assets he assumes don't exist. But there's more. Rumors, threats. I want a detective to dig deeper. She scanned the pages, nodding slowly. Smart. I know a good one. Ex-federal agent, specializes in financial trails. He'll find any dirt. Our conversation flowed in low voices. She outlined strategies, countersuits for emotional distress, proof of infidelity to nullify his demands. I authorized another transfer for the detective, the amount vanishing into the digital ether. The weeks blurred as I balanced daily routines, walks along the riverbank to clear my head, where the steady flow of the water mirrored my growing patience, with the covert progress. Clara stayed with me, her job providing structure as we awaited updates. One afternoon in early May, the detective, a burly man named Reynolds, met me on a shady park bench downtown. He handed me a manila envelope, its seal cracking with a faint rip. Got him. Photos, timestamps, Ethan's meetings with shady notaries, backdated documents suggesting asset transfers, and Catherine is involved. Bank records show payoffs. I flipped through the images. Ethan in a dimly lit office signing papers with a smirking notary. A twist seized me. One photo showed him looking at a file labeled Vance Estate Inquiry. They were closer than I thought, probing public records for Grandpa's will. "This is gold," I murmured. Reynolds grunted. "Enough to expose the forgery in court, but keep your cards close to your chest. Don't tip them off." Elena reviewed everything at our next session in her office, the pile of reports growing on her desk like a fortress. "We'll save this for the hearing. Let them overplay their hand first." I signed off on more funds, the remaining millions sitting tight, a symbolic act of restraint in the midst of the storm. As the hearing approached, I drove to the courthouse for a pre-trial conference, the building's stone facade looming under gathering clouds. Clara came with me, her hand on my arm. "We're ready, Dad." We parked and walked up the steps, the weight of the files in my briefcase a promise of an impending reckoning. Inside, the hallway echoed with footsteps, leading us to the courtroom door where voices murmured beyond. As we entered the wood-paneled courthouse, the early summer light streamed through the high windows. It had been over a year since the wedding, months of testimony, delays by Ethan's side, and our quiet accumulation of evidence. Clara and I had filled the time with strategy sessions at Elena's office, anxious nights watching the news, and simple routines like dinners together to maintain our sanity. Now, sitting on the hard benches, I watched the trial unfold, my pulse steady but wary. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, called the case. "In the matter of the dissolution of marriage, Clara Vance versus Ethan Harlan." Ethan sat across the aisle with Catherine at his side, their lawyer a slick man in a tailored suit. The bailiff swore in the first witness, the notary, a nervous-looking guy with thinning hair named Lewis, who took the stand fidgeting with his tie. Ethan's lawyer approached, his voice smooth and probing. "Mr. Lewis, please describe the document you notarized for Mr. Harlan." Lewis cleared his throat, glancing at Ethan. "It was a property transfer agreement. Mr. Harlan and his wife signed it, granting him rights to family assets. I verified the IDs, sealed it officially." Murmurs rippled through the small audience. Relatives, a few neighbors. Clara tensed beside me, whispering, "That's false. I never signed anything like that." Elena patted her hand, her eyes on the stand. The cross-examination came quickly. Elena rose, her heels clicking on the floor. "Mr. Lewis, this document is dated before the wedding, yet records show you weren't licensed then. Would you care to explain?" He shifted, sweat beading on his forehead. "Must be a mix-up. I remember the signing clearly." Elena pressed on, sliding a photo across the witness box. Our detective found it, time-stamped. "Is this you, accepting cash from Mrs. Harlan just days before? A payoff, perhaps?" "Objection!" their side shouted. "Speculative!" But the judge overruled it, her gaze sharpening. "Answer the question," Lewis stammered. "It was a loan, unrelated." The room went quiet, the creak of the benches amplifying the fragility of the lie. Catherine testified next, her posture rigid, her voice dripping condescension. "Clara was unstable from the start. She left abruptly, spread rumors about my son. That transfer? She agreed to it verbally. We just formalized it for protection." Elena countered sharply. "Protection from what? Your son's infidelity? We have texts proving otherwise." She submitted printouts, the paper whispering as the judge reviewed them. Ethan leaned forward during a recess, hissing across the aisle. "Give it up, Frank. We're taking it all. The house, the savings, it's Clara's word against ours." I met his gaze, unflinching. Words crumble against the truth. Echoes of the detective's reports rang in my head, payoffs traced to Catherine's accounts, Ethan's affairs documented in detail. Back in session, their lawyer paraded a character witness, a colleague who smeared Clara as impulsive. Walked out for no reason, probably hiding her own secrets. Clara squeezed my hand, her resolve flashing. Elena dismantled him with cross-examination. "And did you witness this? Or did you just hear it from Mr. Harlan?" The twist came mid-testimony. Lewis was recalled to the stand. He faltered under cross-examination. Elena produced a recorded confession, legally obtained by our detective, where Lewis admitted to forging the signature in exchange for a payout. The judge admitted the recording as evidence, overruling Ethan's team's objections that it was coerced. Lewis's silence on the stand spoke volumes. Gasps filled the air, the judge banging her gavel for order. Elena addressed the bench, her voice ringing with confidence. "Your Honor, we have more. Financial trails proving premeditated fraud." She stood with our binder, the courtroom tensing as she approached, the papers in her hand ready to unravel their web. Elena advanced in the city courtroom that May day in 2025, her binder of evidence held high like a banner of truth. The judge leaned forward, glasses on the tip of her nose, as the gallery held its collective breath. "Your Honor, this evidence dismantles their claims," Elena stated, her voice firm and incisive. She handed over the stack. Detectives' reports, bank statements tracking payoffs, audio transcripts from hidden recordings. The judge flipped through them, the pages whispering under her fingers. Ethan shifted in his seat, his face pale, while Catherine gripped the armrest, her knuckles white. Their lawyer leaped up. "Objection! Unclear chain of custody. This could be fabricated." "Overruled," the judge snapped, her tone allowing no argument. "Continue, Ms. Warren." Elena nodded, playing an audio clip through the courtroom speakers. Lewis's voice crackled. "Yeah, I'll backdate it for the right price. Make it look legit." Gasps echoed from the benches, the window light shifting over shocked faces, illuminating the unraveling deceit. Ethan leaned into Catherine, whispering urgently, but she shushed him with a sharp look. "Huh." I sat beside Clara, my hand on hers, feeling her pulse race. Memories surfaced, the detective's late-night call weeks ago, detailing that very recording from a device planted at their meeting. "Got him on tape," he'd said gruffly. Now it was paying off. The judge's voice cut through, her pen tapping rhythmically. "This evidence suggests perjury and fraud. The property transfer is invalid. It is struck from the record." She turned to Lewis on the stand. "You contradicted yourself earlier. Explain," he mumbled, eyes darting nervously. It was a mistake. I was pressured." Protests erupted from Ethan's side, their lawyer lightly pounding the table. "This is a setup. We demand a mistrial." "Denied," the judge retorted, her gavel cracking once for emphasis. "Furthermore, I'm referring this to the DA's office for charges of forgery and bribery against Mr. Harlan, Mrs. Harlan, and Mr. Lewis." Catherine shot to her feet, her voice rising in a controlled hiss. "You can't do this. We had reasons. Protection against her instability," Elena countered quickly. "Reasons like greed, your financial trails show premeditation, probing for assets you assumed existed." She produced more evidence. Emails planning the notary scheme dated before the wedding. The final twist unfolded as the audio played a second clip. Catherine's voice. "Once we secure the inheritance through the marriage, we'll sell it off." The room tensed further, the murmurs growing. Ethan slumped, burying his face in his hands. "No, that's taken out of context," he muttered weakly. The judge reviewed her notes silently for a moment, the clock ticking audibly in the quiet. "Divorce granted to the plaintiff, with no division of assets to the defendant. Court costs to be paid by Mr. Harlan. Bailiff, escort Mr. Lewis for questioning." The notary stood up, shaking, as security approached. As court adjourned, I exchanged a look with Clara, her eyes shining with vindication, mine with quiet triumph. We collected our things, stepping out into the hall where the echoes of the gavel faded, her hand squeezing my arm in wordless thanks. We walked down the courthouse steps into the late May sunshine, the heat soaking through our clothes like a balm after the cold of the confrontation. Clara stopped at the bottom, turning to me with a deep breath. "Dad, I don't know how we afforded Elena and that detective. You must have scraped together every last penny. Let me pay you back somehow." I smiled faintly, guiding her toward the car parked across the street. "Not necessary. There's more to tell." We slid into the seats, the engine humming to life as I pulled onto the road. The familiar streets passed by, flowering trees lining the drive home, a contrast to the storm we'd weathered. The drive was in thoughtful silence, her gaze on the window, mine on the horizon. At home, we settled in the living room, the late afternoon light casting golden hues through the curtains. I stood, moving to the study desk where the safe deposit box waited. "Clara, sit down. It's time you knew." She perched on the edge of the sofa, her brow furrowed. "Know what? You've already done so much, raising me alone, fighting this." I opened the box with a soft click, pulling out the envelope marked Estate of James Vance. Grandpa left us. Set, $9 million from his investments. He passed in late 2023, remember? I hid this. After the will reading, I had a bad feeling about Ethan. Her eyes went wide, hands flying to her mouth. $9 million? Dad? Why? Why keep it a secret? We struggled. The bills, the house. I sat beside her, spreading the papers on the coffee table, their crinkling filling the quiet room. For protection, Grandpa warned me on his deathbed. The takers will come sniffing around. That hospital room. His voice, weak but firm, echoing his fishing trips with us, teaching caution. When Ethan was probing at dinners, smirking about the future, I knew. Hiding it saved us from their grip. She traced the numbers, tears welling. All this time, you let them think we were broke. You took their cheap shots. For me. Always for you, I said softly, pulling her into a hug, her shoulders relaxing against mine. The memories intertwined. Grandpa's cozy study. The chess pieces clicking as he shared stories of shrewd business deals, his eyes twinkling. He built it quietly. For family. Now it's ours. To heal. To build. The twist came as she turned a page, finding a note in Grandpa's handwriting. "Frank," it read, "tell Clara when it's safe." She laughed through her tears. He knew. Those stories he told me as a kid, about spotting the fakes. It all makes sense. We talked late into the night, sharing memories over tea, the steam curling like burdens released. "So what now?" she asked, her voice hopeful. "With this, we can start over, maybe a trip, like to those Michigan lakes he loved so much." I nodded, pulling old albums from the shelf, photos spilled out, the three of us in happier times. As we looked through them, the future unfolded before us, bound by lasting ties and a hard-won peace. If you like this story, please give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts on this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left. Thanks for listening.